Welcome back. Now, the New York Post is this evening reporting there has been a third assassination attempt on former US President Donald Trump, but it's been thwarted. Yesterday, he attended a rally at Coachella Valley in California, where local police stopped an armed man with guns and fake passes trying to get in. Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco said, "We probably stopped another assassination attempt that were different enough. They were different enough to cause the deputies alarm." The suspect was caught about a mile from the rally venue with a phony entry pass, according to police. He was also carrying a loaded shotgun, handgun and high-capacity magazine. Cops stopped him about half a mile from the rally at a checkpoint. It does look like Donald Trump has once again quite literally dodged a bullet. Annunciata, you and I were both on air, and Paul Richards, for the second assassination attempt on Donald Trump whilst he was playing golf in Mar-a-Lago, which was luckily unfulfilled and unsuccessful. But once again, you know, the parlor state of US politics, and if public figures like a presidential hopeful is not safe, then neither is democracy.
I absolutely agree. And I was listening to GB News on the radio earlier, and one of the commentators said going to Coachella is going into enemy territory. And I think that kind of perception that the opposition are the enemy is actually very dangerous.
No part of America should be enemy territory for a politician.
It shouldn't be. And, you know, of course, California traditionally does vote Democrat, but that shouldn't mean that the Republicans can't campaign there and campaign there safely. But I think America has got a real problem with guns.
Yeah. Well, indeed. Paul, you were also with us on air for that second assassination attempt, and then, of course, the other one back in July, which actually struck the president on the ear. I mean, you just have to wonder whether things are going to change in US politics in the months and years ahead. You know, can politicians make public appearances? Will there come a point where they're only going to be on a video camera?
I mean, they're going to have to keep making public appearances because democracy rests on the interaction between leaders and their people. I think British people just find it so bizarre that guns are so ubiquitous in American culture. Yeah, this guy being arrested with guns in his car. Americans drive around with the guns in their car all the time. It's just, you know, quite a normal thing. And I just think I don't know about you, I can't remember the last time I saw a gun. You know, it's not part of our everyday culture. Yeah. And yet in the States it really is. And until they sort that bit out and just get them off the streets and out of people's private ownership, then I think this is going to carry on.
But the genie is out of the lamp on that one, isn't it? There are now more handguns in America than citizens.
Well, indeed, but I think, you know, if you look at the types of gun control that you could introduce, you know, on assault weapons, for example, you know, rapid-fire machine guns and so on, you don't need those to hunt rabbits.
Indeed. What do you think about this? This is very concerning, isn't it?
Yeah.
We need politicians of all persuasions to be safe. We've had two serving members of parliament in this country murdered in cold blood. For various political reasons.
I think, you know, we must be able to campaign. I think the problem, and you highlighted it earlier, Mark, is that with American politics, everything is so negative, and they spend all the money they raise virtually destroying the other candidate. And let's face it, you know, both candidates can be very controversial. Donald Trump can be very controversial and can say everything he likes and thinks, and perhaps that's right in a democracy, but I think it just hypes everything up, then coupled with the fact you've got so many guns in people's ownerships, and like you say, they're not just handguns; they're all sorts of high-powered rifles and machine gun types, and this is what's wrong. But I think you must be able to campaign wherever you are. But I think one of these days, I think America will have to stop destroying each other, really, and they literally do. They just destroy each party in each candidate. They destroy each other, and I think this sort of hypes everybody up, and I think it's just getting worse and worse, and I think that's one of the problems also.
Most definitely. Well, let's get reaction now from the former Conservative MP for Bournemouth East and former chair of the Defence Select Committee, Tobias Elwood. Tobias, thank you so much for joining us. Your reaction to the news that a third attempt has been made on the life of Donald Trump?
Yeah, this is quite shocking. I'd agree. This is a poor reflection on where democracy is. We look at America, and indeed Britain, if you like, as the parents of modern democracy. And authoritarianism is on the rise across the world. And yet here we are, both countries going through very isolationist and problematic issues from a domestic perspective. And it showing how angry US politics is becoming at such a critical time, not just because of the US election cycle, but also because of America's role in the world. This is taking away from looking at those other big issues of the day where we do require international statecraft. Israel, Gaza for one, Ukraine another, the wider geopolitical challenge of China and so forth. And it then begs the question as to who would want to step forward and actually be counted, to actually represent public life and so forth. It's very, very worrying indeed that we're seeing perhaps this become desensationalized, becoming normalized, that now if you disagree with somebody, you're quite content to go and secure a firearm and go out and shoot somebody. Very, very concerning indeed.
Indeed. Tobias, whilst I have you, can I ask you about your latest thoughts on the Tory leadership? And then there were two. So Cleverly is out and it's now Badenoch versus Jenrick. Is the leadership ticket now too right-wing?
That's a really good question. And the fact that I understand where the GBNews sits, the fact that you're posing this question, the fact that it is actually being asked by Conservatives right across the spectrum is a concern. And I hope that the two candidates are aware of that. We need to have competent opposition. This lengthy but important selection process is about achieving that objective, becoming a opposition party, an effective opposition party, as a stepping stone to returning to power. And that requires us to reach out beyond our party members and appeal to the electorate as a whole. We won't do that if all we do is talk to ourselves and stay purely on the right of the political spectrum. We ignore our own track record of success if we do that. If we ever want to get elected, we must also get support from the centre right as well. History shows that. We're down to these final two candidates. I hope that the professionalism, the resolve, the humility that we display now, and where we pitch ourselves in the political spectrum, really will widen that appeal and make sure that we can regroup and regain the trust of the electorate. Otherwise, we'll be in opposition for a long time.
Does the rhetoric of either Jenrick or Badenoch concern you at all, Tobias?
Well, look at those results. I think all of us would like to have seen greater clarity of a single candidate winning the MP's race, if you like, perhaps achieving 60 votes, a clear majority, giving an indication to the party membership what the MPs thought. Instead, we've had a three-way split. So that really sends a confusing message as to where the party membership should actually go. I hope that both the remaining two candidates blend their own messaging in recognizing that they've got to take ideas and policy thoughts from all three camps if they want to hold the party together. Otherwise, I'm afraid we're simply going to return to the tribal discord, the disunity that was so destructive when we were actually in government.
Although, Tobias, are both Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick not right to address the threat of Reform UK and the small matter of the 4.1 million people that voted for them in July?
Oh, absolutely. But, as I found out in Bournemouth East, I knocked onto the very doors of people that voted Reform. There was 5 doors in a row on a particular street. I went back there and said, tell me, now what do you think? Now you see the result. And they go, firstly, really sorry to have lost you personally. We liked you as a local MP. That's always nice to hear. But I ventured to say, were we not right-wing enough? Is that why you voted Reform? And they said, no, we couldn't vote for any of the other parties, but we wanted to send a message to Westminster that you looked incompetent and we wanted you to regroup. So that is the message, that if we show competence, if we start to refine the policies that will appeal to the electorate as a whole, then we can actually push Reform away without having to feel the need to join them. I make it really clear that it's very, very simple what we need to do. Put country before party. Don't make promises to court the membership vote that won't survive contact with the real world. Let's stay professional. Let's don't turn this into the Hunger Games. And let's retain a broad church appeal, pitching, from the extremists that say will never win. And finally, we're in no rush. The nation really is not listening to us yet. We've got a long time to regroup, craft that longer-term narrative that helps us broaden our electoral appeal so we actually do attract people under the age of 30.
Tobias Ellwood, a real treat to have you back on the show. We'll catch up soon. Former Conservative MP Tobias Ellwood, of course, chair of the Defence Select Committee and former soldier as well.